La 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 la. Popping up now?
Well, it says up 3:50 p.m. Waiting for the Lost Socket Garage.
Well, try it again.
It just says upcoming on my end.
Try it again. It's working. It's very nice. I gotta turn off my headphones. Hey, Gandalf.
Yes, sir.
Can we close that door, please? Can you hear it okay?
Yeah, you're just like a minute behind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it lags.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Lost Socket Garage Live. We just did a video on Dinocorn, full bodies and shells, and just wanted to kind of hop in here and maybe answer some questions. So if you guys have questions, just throw them in the chat. I'm not great with the live setups yet, so it's something that I'm trying to kind of like bring along and you know, do more of. So if you guys like the videos or anything like that, hit subscribe, like. I'm really here to answer questions because this Dinocorn body and you know, what makes financial sense for Coupe to Fastback conversions. It's a pretty important topic, you know, and it seems like a lot of people have a bunch of different theories and beliefs about it and stuff like that. And so I'm here to answer any questions that you have. So just put them into the comment section or the chat section. I'm happy to answer them. A couple of things from the video. First off, the budgeting stuff. You know, when I start editing the videos, I mean, I'm basically, let me adjust the camera here. When we're doing, you shall not miss this live. When we're doing the videos, when I'm editing videos and stuff, I have to cut a lot of stuff out, and sometimes I you know, don't cover everything that I want to. So I might start doing these lives afterwards just to kind of answer some questions and stuff. Jay Living, where are y'all at? I have 4 Mustangs and parts, need help with my cars. We're in Salt Lake City, Utah, bud. Type where you're at in the chat. You know, we work with, I'll be honest, like 90% of the cars that we get in here are from outside of Utah. They're from out of state. So, you know, we have a fair amount of experience with shippers and stuff like that. Georgia. What's up, Jay from Georgia? So Georgia, I think, is it in Georgia or is it in Alabama? There's like a Mustang farm in Athens, Georgia. Wait, Athens, Georgia? Yeah, Athens, Georgia. There's like a Mustang farm, and I always see their stuff on Marketplace. Like, always. Outside of Denver. Man, I love Denver. Wait for it. Wait for it. Go Broncos, baby. So yeah, like I was saying, you know, there's stuff that I leave out that I have to cut out that hits the, you know, the cutting room floor. But you know, a couple of things. I just kind of wanted to cover this budget thing a little bit more in depth. When I bust this out, apparently seam seal got on the back of that. When I bust this out, I mean, these are all very, very round numbers. And, you know, I don't go through and itemize every single nut and bolt and trim and there's 50 acres of Mustangs in Alabama. Well, I need to go to Alabama, Jay. Damn. You know, I don't itemize every single bolt, every single bit of chrome trim, etc. So, you know, when I'm doing this, if you guys watch the video, you know, I'm doing this whiteboard thing. These are round numbers, and I can tell you 100% firsthand that if you're putting these cars back together and you have a budget and you think you're going to spend, $1,000 on interior trim pieces, etc., you're going to get down to it and there's going to be bolts and nuts and chrome trims and little things here and there that you're going to be missing. So that's why I try to make like a disclaimer up front that all of the numbers are very, very round. Let's see, Bleach Blondie Java, what's up? Hear a lot of hate with EFI reliability. Is carb the way to go? I'm at elevation, so I'm going to say no carb. I'm not a carb guy. I love fuel injection, and I think part of my thing with like the EFI systems, especially with Holley, it's a drivability thing. So for example, we're in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're at elevation in the valley, and then if let's say I want to drive up to a ski resort, drive up to a canyon or whatever, and my carb isn't jetted correctly, it's not going to make those altitude changes. If you're in the desert and you're not, climbing altitude, I mean, this obviously is not going to apply to you, but, with that O2 sensor in your header and then the EFI being able to make all the air to fuel ratio calculations on the fly, you can go to elevation, you can do a canyon cruise. Cold starts are way, way easier. It's a very reliable system. And more importantly, it's a system that you can grow with. And any of you out there that have experience with tuners, I mean, throw it in the comments, but tuners, in my opinion, are one of the best upgrades that you can do to modern cars as well as old cars, because it gives you that platform that you can actually build off of. So for example, if you get a Holley Sniper and you have a 289 in your car and you're like, this is reliable, it's fun, but maybe I want some more horsepower. Maybe I'll build a 351, or I'll stroke it to a 408 or 390 big block or something like that. You can adapt that EFI to those applications, and you can take it and have it tuned to update if you throw like exhaust, or if you get crazy, throw nitrous on it or supercharger or whatever. But it's a base modification that you can add on to that actually has a lot of performance gains and reliability, like out of the box. So long story short, I love the Holley EFI. This bug. Mostly fastback cars, man. I'm in the business of fastbacks. Let's get some of those up here. Whoa, you did miss out on Chelsea. Love the Holley EFI, living Front Range, Colorado. You don't have to rejet. Yeah, I mean, again, that rejetting thing is a giant pain in the ass. And carbs, they work off magic anyway. It's like you put fuel in them, and then there's a little bit magician in there that sprinkles fuel into your intake manifold. That's how carburetors work. That's my lesson for today. Oh, you're from Oh, your wife is from Wyoming. Nice. We actually just, the last car that we sent down the road, the Blueberry, was actually Wyoming. Yeah, Wyoming. Talking about budget stuff, and I didn't want the video before to be any hate whatsoever on Dinocorn bodies. It's just every time that I, post videos or stuff on Facebook or Instagram, etc., I always get these people, whoa, why wouldn't it be just cheaper to buy a Dinocorn body, and then that way you're not having to deal with everything? And honestly, it's not cheaper. When you really calculate everything, having a donor is honestly the way to go, but there is a place for those Dinocorn shells. And kind of at the end of the video, I talk about a comfort level. And I didn't really get too far into that, but the comfort level, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like knowing that your entire car is brand new metal, there's definitely something to be said for that. That, in 4 years, 5 years, you're not gonna have to go through and replace the floor or anything like that. So, if you have the money and you're doing like a resto mod and you're gonna do some crazy stuff to it, yeah, dude, get a Dinocorn shell. Also, it saves you a bunch of welding, so if you're not quite a welding aficionado or whatnot, you're not a great welder, the Dinocorn body might be a good fit for you, because there's really not much welding that you really have to do. Everything's bolt on. You know, you'll need to weld in some stuff for suspension depending on what setup you go with, but that Dinocorn body is a good option for people that don't want to weld their car together or cut their car in half. Subframe is only 68, probably end up doing a firewall toe panel, full floor. What do you think is the best place to start? Real nautical fishing. What's up, dude? I'm changing front subframes on my 68 and probably end up doing a firewall toe, full floor. So it's a good subject. Full floor, is the way to go from a cost perspective. And I say from a cost perspective, being a labor perspective. So if you come to me and you say, hey, my floor's missing, I'm yabba dabba doing this bitch right now. It's going to take me more man hours. It's going to take me more labor hours to change out your floor if we're doing like drop-in tubs, or if we're just doing, you know, little patches here and there, like, because you can buy the square patches for where your feet go before you hit the floor to firewall. But on the floor, you can buy the square patches. You can buy the entire side, which is, you know, a long pan with the front and back seat area, or you can buy the full floor. The full floor is just so much easier to do. And I know that that's kind of, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but instead of having to do the patches, a full floor is the best way to go. So you're gonna pull your full floor out. You're gonna have to do a floor to firewall patch, because where your floor meets the firewall and the firewall starts going up, right? Well, sorry, floor's over it. Your firewall starts going up like that. Around this area, there's always rust. So CJ sells floor to firewall patches. So you're gonna take out your floor, you're gonna do your floor to firewall patch, and then you're gonna fit your floor to that patch. Toe kick, same time. Hope that helps. From experience, Dinocorn floor assemblies are okay, but side assemblies are usually not welded dimensionally correct. Dude, I can't agree with you more on that. I mean, that was one of the cons that I outlaid in the video, was that, granted, again, full disclosure, we have done one full side assembly that we tried to put on all at once in one piece. We've done one of those, and it was horribly off. So from a shop perspective, I'm not gonna keep going back and ordering full side assemblies until they figure it out. You know, my next reaction was, okay, we're just cutting these fucking things down to begin with so that we can be more productive. So again, but you know, I've looked at a lot of videos on YouTube on the Dinocorn bodies and on the Dinocorn side assemblies, and I'm not weird in that. I mean, that's a very, very common issue, is that they're just, dimensionally, they just don't, they're not welded in correctly, which is very unfortunate, because Dinocorn, from an individual part aspect, their parts are great, man. Like, I don't go to MPD or AMD or anything like that. I wouldn't say their stuff for Chevy's great, but I would say that their Ford products are fucking great, except for the pre-welded stuff. But, you know, again, you can order one and see if it works. Worst case scenario, you chop it down and throw it on. Bleach Blondie Java. Sup? I have a 67 Coupe. Do I need the passenger torque box? No. It didn't come with one stock. So 67, it only came with one torque box, and this is convertibles aside, because that was different. But 67 only had one torque box. 68 is when they moved to two torque boxes. Convertible, they always had two torque boxes, but they also had a thicker gauge metal floor, because you have a less support up top with the convertible, obviously. We did add one in. The last car we did, it was a 67. We did add a torque box in just for rigidity. It was the super solid car. But I mean, it's optional. You don't really need it. Oof. Jay Livin, the car I'm working on is a 68 Fastback GT 390 4-speed candy apple red powered disc, non-power steering car. That's awesome. That's way dope. Yeah, I mean, we have a 390 in right now in our, I mean, it's an original S code, but the 390, man, that thing is brutal. And it's much more brutal when you have to change out like a spark plug, or God forbid you have to do long tube headers or any headers on that car. It's fucking ridiculous. Do I think that the front frame should be replaced before the floor or after? So are you talking about the front frame rails? So if you're talking about the front frame rails, you need to build a jig, or you need to reinforce the car. So anytime unless you're doing patches, but if you're replacing a frame rail, it needs to be on a jig. You need to really stiffen the car up. I mean, frame rail connectors. I was on the phone with someone today talking about, and I haven't really thought of it this way before, but frame rail connectors honestly are like one of the best bang for the buck upgrades that you can do to a Mustang. The rigidity that it adds, the ride quality that it adds, the safety that it adds, it's just a no-brainer. But back to the original point, if you do frame rail connectors and then brace it up or put it on a jig, I would go ahead and do all your frame stuff first, and then go to like your floor, your kick pan, stuff like that. Reason being is it's much easier to get a floor to fit a thicker piece of metal or a frame rail than it is to make a frame rail fit a floor, if that makes sense. So your floor is a much smaller gauge than your frame rail, so it's easier to make that stuff fit. So I would go with the thick stuff first, get your measurements all correct, and then just get those frame rails done. Also, you might as well just get the, if you're doing a full floor, make sure you get the trans tunnel support, the forward trans tunnel support, and then usually they come with seat risers as well. Floors are a little bit overwhelming. You see a hole in the floor of a car and you're like, ah, shit, that's not great. I don't want to buy that. But really they're $450, $500 for a full floor, and then whatever man hours you put into it. Any front suspension upgrades that won't break the bank? Was looking into Mustangs to fear. I love Mustangs to fear. I love their products, man. We put in their front ends, their Mustang 2 front ends all the time, and we love it. It's a great product. As far as bang for the buck, I mean, you're like $4,500 for the Mustang 2 front end. It's a game changer for you. The car is going to ride completely different. Go ahead and get some Dynalights thrown on there for a Mustang 2. Mustangs to Fear offers the upgrade package for your brakes, but they don't offer the basic Dynalights. So the basic Dynalights are just like your normal rotor. The upgrade that Mustangs to Fear offers is cross-drilled and slotted rotors. But if you go to like Summit Racing, or I mean, even we could sell you a set of just the basic Willwood Dynalights, you could actually save quite a bit of money doing it that way, because I think that they're only like $600 or $700 for a Mustang 2. Just make sure that you're ordering it for a Mustang 2. But Mustangs to Fear as a whole, man, their products are awesome. We love them. Where the A-pillar welds to the rocker, what's the inches side to side, pinch weld to pinch weld, and inner rocker? Some say 54 3/4, some say 55 1/4. So because of how sup dog, Cooper, what's up? Because of how we're set up, I'm not going to be able to do measurements right now. But if you send me a email, lostsocketgarage@gmail.com, I can take that measurement for you. But keep in mind, and this is something important to note, don't drive yourself crazy with the measurements. I mean, do to a certain point, but I can take the same measurement off of 3 different fastbacks that are all the same trim, all the same year, same options, everything. Those measurements are going to be different, like within a half an inch of each other. And so that, for us, when we're doing all these coupe to fastback conversions, getting a system made out of that, it's a giant pain in the ass, but these were handmade cars, right? So Ford's tolerances back then were a lot larger. So just make sure that when you're fitting stuff up, put doors on, check your door gaps, put windows in, stuff like that. But shoot me an email and I can get you a measurement off of what we use. I don't have that off the top of my head. SN95 front ends work. They do. Yeah, it's kind of hard to find them sometimes. I really do like the Mustangs to Fear kit, but if, you know, kind of getting back to that budget suspension thing, you can go through and just buy all new suspension for a couple of grand, and it's just going to replace back to stock, throw some disc brakes on it, and you're pretty much good to go. Like I said, from a suspension handling aspect, I think really frame rail connectors are going to be your best bet because it's very low labor. We get the bolt-in ones, but then I just weld them in. But they're like $150, $200. Huge bang for the buck. Mustang 2 kit. I love that thing. I need to talk to Mustangs to Fear because we install a lot of those. Their customer service is really good too. And their install videos, that dude is just straight welding with no sleeves on. He is a bad man. I want to grow up and be just like him. Yeah, let's cover the numbers on the board. So the main thought behind this was, a Dinocorn shell. Who's it good for? Who's it not good for? Like I was saying a little bit earlier, we get a lot of flack for doing what we do. I don't really care, but there's people want fastbacks and they want to be able to save money. And fastbacks right now are just ridiculously damn expensive. Just 18 grand for a trash can. So, these pre-bodied or these donor cars, I mean, it really is the way to go, but each person's situation is so different that it really kind of depends. And, I covered this a few videos ago, but build yourself a budget. Take your goal. Okay, this is what I'd like for the car. I'd like it to handle well. I'd like it to be fuel injected. I'd like it to have this motor, this trans, blah, blah, blah. And then build a budget off of that and then see where you can save money. Oh, thanks, Derry. Yeah, so Derek works for us, so he just took a measurement for you. He's being an amazing little assistant out there. And they're being quiet out there. It's almost too quiet. Y'all have kids out there in the audience? When your kids are like really quiet, kind of get a little paranoid. So cost. So, some of the stuff I broke down in the video was the shell is...
You told us to be quiet.
My kids are yelling at me right now. And it's on a delay, so like he starts yelling, "You told me to be quiet." But it was like 5 minutes later. So the shell is 17.5, right? They have a crate fee, which is just putting in that big metal crate. It's not shipping, but it's $5.95 just to put in that big metal crate. And then shipping, I gotta imagine, just from buying a lot of stuff from Dinocorn, you're not gonna save money on shipping going through Dinocorn. So, we actually, Dinocorn's really, really good for their parts and stuff, but as far as like shipping is concerned, it's difficult to be one of their dealers. Let's just leave it at that. But, their shipping, you're probably gonna spend $800 to $1,000 at least to get that Dinocorn body shipped to you. And I didn't even figure that into the cost. So, I mean, you're 18 grand for your shell. You're $2,000 for a full set of glass. I would say around $2,000 for interior. But I mean, again, like I said earlier, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're missing that you don't think of right off the bat. So CJ Pony Parts. They sell an interior kit that has, almost everything, but there's still going to be little bits and bobs that you're missing out of that stuff. So that's why we try to budget $2 grand. Let's see if you guys can. You guys really still can't see that, huh? There we go. Just because I have gin in my office doesn't mean I actually drink it in my office. Or do I? All right. That's parts alone. Forgot about shop work. Oh yeah, getting back to suspension. That Mustang 2, yeah, that's $4,500 ish without brakes, not installed. We end up charging, I don't know, you're around $7 if you go through us, parts and labor, everything out the door to set that suspension up. And, you know, again, suspension is something that you have to have right off the bat with buying a Dinocorn shell. You know, the good part about having a donor is you can actually do that donor in stages. So, I mean, you could, let's say you have a 67 C coat or whatever, it's kind of a rust bucket, right? You fix one thing, you fix the floor, you fix the frame rail or whatever, decide, hey, I want to do a Coupe to Fastback Conversion. You look up this super awesome YouTube channel, Lost Socket Garage. You take a bunch of tips and tricks from us, and then you go build a Fastback. You do the conversion yourself. You can drive it around still because it has suspension on it. You know, it has a motor, it has a trans or whatever if you get a good donor. And then you can buy the rest of your interior. And then, you know, a couple of months later, you can upgrade to fuel injection and stuff like that. But with a Dinocorn shell, you can't do shit with that car until you have suspension, until it's basically finished. So I didn't really delve into project time with that video. That's something that I wanted to do but wasn't able to, fortunately. But project time is you know, it's nice to bring in a running driving coupe and then turn it into a Fastback and just drive it out of the garage versus, hey, you know, I have this Fastback, but it's going to be a year before I get a motor and trans and suspension and all that crap in it. Donor kebab. I don't know, man. Kebab? Donor kebab? Donor kebab? I don't know what that means, but yeah, get a donor. I built my 390 in the living room. Yeah, usually you can only get away with that when you're single. So if you weren't single at the time, should have kept that lady around, because I used to have car parts hanging out in my apartment all the damn time back in the day. I'd have like a set of tires. I used to be way into Subarus, so, you know, obviously I'd have a couple of spare blocks hanging around because those things blow up every 5 fucking miles. Okay, so back to pricing. So, you know, drivetrain, $5,000. Man, find a 351, throw some aluminum heads on it and get a 5-speed and call it a day. And you could probably do that for around $5,000. $3,000 for rear end and rear suspension. Your power goals. Again, this is when you kind of come up with a plan ahead of time, because if you're buying suspension, okay, or if you're buying a drivetrain, let's say that you want to build a 408, right? And you're going to put a beefy trans behind it, you know, you're going to put a TKO or something behind it. You need good suspension, but also you have to get that power to the ground. What's that mean? Well, you need to run fatter tires. Well, what's that mean? You have less clearance on a stock Mustang, the stock wheel wells, so you need to do mini tubs to get thicker rubber under there. Okay, well, mini tubs, when is the best time to do mini tubs? Best time to do mini tubs is when your car is cut in half. Actually, Derry's doing that right now to 65, and it's going to take a fraction of the time to do it while your car's cut in half than if you do the conversion and then go back and say, okay, well, I actually want to put a 500 horsepower motor in this, so I'm going to need some, you know, 315s back there. Oh, wait, I can't fit them, so I'm going to have to squeeze in under the inner structure and put in mini tubs. So again, plan out your build. Man, I wish I had learned that when I was young, because I would just throw money in parts at a car and then be chasing my tail afterwards. Really good question. Emery's Willet, when you take a Fastback conversion, do you prefer it to be running driving or stripped to a rolling chassis? Running driving doesn't really matter. It makes it easier on us as far as pushing the car in and out of the shop, which my guys out there would really, really love. The best condition that we can hope for our car to be in when it gets here is the driver's seat in, the rest of the interior out, except for the dash pad and the gauge clusters. Carpet out, seats out, door cards, all your trims, roof liner, all of that out. But leave the motor and trans in because we don't really have to mess with that at all. We don't really touch it. The only thing that we do when we put on the jig is part of our jig mounts to basically your idler and your pitman. So we take part of your suspension, part of your rack off essentially. But other than that, we don't touch motor and trans. Jay Living, she helps me. Her 66 and my son Shelby's 67 Coupes are next. That's dope. That's awesome. Derry's in here like, yeah, no, bring us running driving cars so I don't have to push it anymore. I get it, dude. It's okay. No wiring. We do wiring kits too. So actually, thanks, Derry. Fold down, you're gonna have to do that regardless, right? But wiring harness, another thing that you can get away with keeping if you get a donor coupe. You don't have to throw the grand at, American Auto Wire or, Painless, I think is a little bit cheaper, but it's schmah. We're American Auto Wire dealers. We really like their wiring harnesses. But they're, you're looking at about $1,000 for a wiring harness. And when you're looking at having something shipped out that's also going to cost $1,000, like a body or shell, that stuff adds up very, very quickly. I put $1,000 misc budget for like bumpers and chrome pieces and grill and headlight. I probably way lowballed that, to be honest with you. I would probably plan on your misc budget if you're getting a Dinocorn shell for like $2-3 grand. So that would obviously take this 43,100 number up. Yeah, I mean where that compares, and it's not a terribly fair comparison because the last time I did this write-up, it was 3 completely different cars. 66s are automatically more expensive to convert because we have to use the pre-welded assemblies on them. So that wasn't terribly fair on the 66, but the 68 and the 67, these were a couple of really good examples of, the 68 was Chelsea, running, driving with the Holly Sniper and all that good stuff on it. So that was a good deal for what we got it for, and it was a good deal for what we sold it for, to be honest with you. Oscar is next, the green garbage can outside. It's going to need a lot of metal work. Well, the cool thing is I'm going to sell that at a fixed price as a fastback roller with new suspension, all the metal work done, epoxy primed, lined inside and underneath, seam sealed, bracket kit installed. So, sometimes people will be like, hey, what's Oscar look like? I can send you pictures and stuff, but it's beat. But I'm going to be selling it at a fixed price as a rolling fastback, basically. That's awesome, man. Thanks, Jay Living. I appreciate that you guys watch so much. Your life choices could be questioned, spending your time watching my ass cut Mustangs in half, but I still like your style, bud. Let's talk about, we could talk about paint a little bit. I'm only going to be on here for a few more minutes, so make sure that if you have any questions, just type them in. If I miss the questions, shoot me an email, lostsocketgarage@gmail.com. I'm always happy to answer questions. I want to do more and more of these lives. I think it adds a lot of value, and I'm able to talk a little bit more. And if you guys do watch my videos, I talk a lot, as it is. I've caught shit for how much I've talked before. But, in talking about, let's, talk about paint. Paint's very, very important. And a lot of people will literally try to discount paint. They'll try to, and we don't do paint or body work here. We stop at epoxy primer. But so often lately, I've seen people walk around and say, oh, well, this other place will do my paint job, a complete paint job for $4 grand, or they'll do it for $5 grand or $6 or $3 grand or whatever. Or, this guy's running a special $1,500. Man, if you have a 60s Mustang and you spend $3,000 to have someone paint it, you should be slapped, in my opinion. The paint is the number one thing that people see. It's what you're going to wake up to and see first thing in the morning when you walk out to the garage. you're going to see either a beautiful paint job or a shitty paint job, and it's going to piss you off every single day. Spend the money on paint, guys. Honestly, it's hard to find a quality painter. Most large shops don't take on full paint jobs anymore because most of their money is in insurance claims. But if you can find a quality painter and you pay him, you know, 10 grand to do it, chances are it's going to be a solid paint job. But finding a quality painter is very hard, and I would recommend shopping around, find other people that have had their cars painted there before, talk to the guy who's actually going to be painting the vehicle, ask him about his process. Ask him to walk you through each step of his process. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know what the fuck he's actually talking about. But just make sure that he is smart enough and cognizant enough about his craft to understand how his process works and is able to relay that process to you. So, you know, a lot of guys are going to start off with the epoxy paint, which is the last step that we do. We don't do anything past epoxy paint. Epoxy primer is more of a sealant than an actual paint itself. So if you get like rust barrier or Pore 15, products like that, it's very, very similar. It's just thinner. So most guys are going to start off with an epoxy primer. It's really, really thin. When you spray epoxy primer over like a sanded down paint job, you can still see the sanded down paint job behind it. It's very thin, but it's a very, very good sealant. So your painter should be like, well, you know, I'm going to put a sealant on it. I'm going to put an epoxy primer on it. Then I'm going to hit it with high build. Then I'm going to sand it down, find some low spots, then I'm going to start my body work. And then I'm going to, you know, go through and do my final block, 500 grit, whatever. And then I'm going to paint. I'm going to use 3 coats of this paint. I'm going to use, you know, 2 coats of this clear. Make him walk you through your process, or walk you through his process. Vet your painter a lot, because I'll be 100% honest. I have lost thousands and thousands of dollars because of painters, because of shitty paint jobs. It sucks. So spend the money, get it done right. Come to the World of Wheels in Chattanooga. So funny story. I actually had a customer in here today that's from Tennessee, and he was talking about how I needed to go to Tennessee because I have a Jack Daniels metal sign hanging in the shop. He's like, "Oh, you like Jack?" Because I go to the Jack Daniels distillery every once in a while and stuff. I was like, "Oh, cool." Tennessee's beautiful though. What is at the World of? I mean, I assume it's wheels at the World of Wheels, but like just muscle car wheels, Japanese wheels. What kind of wheels are at the World of Wheels? Has rear fender flares, do you cut around them or add new if you're able to do a conversion? So my car has fender flares, do you cut around them if you're to do a conversion? Get new ones. Yeah, that's the play. If you have fender flares that are metal, there's a good chance of saving them. If they're fiberglass, which most of them are, you're not going to be able to save it anyway. Because if it was fiberglass on correctly, you're going to have your, this is your fender, and then you have your flare going out like that. Your fiberglass should go out at least that far to actually blend it in. So if you try to cut around it, it's going to snap, it's going to break. Taking fiberglass off cars and trying to save it is a nightmare. Either way, flares are cheap enough to where it'd be easier just to replace the set. It's like SEMA? Oh, dude, I didn't know that. So normally every year I'll go to Detroit and I'll go to Roadkill Nights. So Roadkill on Motor Trend, they do this massive car show, and it's alongside the Woodward Dream Cruise. Dude, it's nuts. So I did a video on it like way back before I started the Mustang shop. I did a video on the Woodward Dream Cruise and Roadkill Nights. That's an awesome car show. But World of Wheels, that's awesome. Muscle cars, hot rods, bikes. I need to get SEMA this year too. The hard part is getting something that is presentable at SEMA, because we never have stuff that actually works in this shop. It rolls in with more holes than it leaves with, but that's about it. Your question, sorry about that. How would I put subframe connectors in if I'm changing both front frame rails and that's what they'll connect to? Yeah, I mean, that's a solid point. You know, to your question earlier about, you know, the frame rails, if you're fully replacing the frame rails, then you'll do your frame rail connectors last. If you're doing frame rails though, put on a jig. Put it on a jig, dude. Build it. It's gonna cost you, you know, I think ours ended up costing like $600 in metal or something like that. We have a video on it, but build a jig for the car. That's gonna save you when it comes to doing frame rails, etc. And then do your frame rails first and then do your frame rail connectors. But, fun fact, your frame rail connectors don't actually, they technically don't connect to the frame rail. They connect to the forward floor support that connects to the frame rail. That's an important distinction when you're ordering floor supports. So make sure that you know that that's not part of the frame rail. The part that goes underneath your floor is not, that's not frame rail. That's your forward floor support that slides onto the frame rail and extends, I don't know, a foot or whatever back. And then you attach your floor to that, not to the frame rail. Let's see. All right, I'm probably going to jump off here in just a second, guys. So any last minute questions, throw them in. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Spread the word. Like I said, you know, I'd like to do these lives a little bit more, just to, you know, be in touch with you guys a little bit. Oh, it's a loaded question, Ole. How skilled would you have to be to do a fastback conversion yourself? The first two that we did, I was very unskilled. I was still learning to weld, to be honest with you. But with enough grit, determination, whiskey, and therapy, you could probably do it at almost any skill level. But really the skills that you really need to pull this off, first off, you need a friend that's willing to help you and that's also willing to drink whiskey, be angry, and go through therapy. It's really hard to do this on your own. You need to be a welder. You need to be good at welding. So, you know, take a few months. If you're planning on doing something, take a few months. Take a welding class, pick up a cheap ass MIG welder at Harbor, learn how to weld. Because if you can weld and use grinders and 4-inch cutoff wheels and you can use a measuring tape and you have fair to middling common mechanical sense, you should be able to pull this off. But bring a friend, trust me. Derry had not touched a welder when he started. Yeah. So Derry, yeah, he was pretty much glorified lube jockey when he came in here. So he didn't have a ton of skill, but he's done really well and he's picked it up very fast. So, I mean, it's definitely something that you could do. Use patience, dude. Patience. I'm getting a call. Let's see. Thank you for your time. Really enjoy it. Ready to move from South Florida. Take it easy. Ford made more fastbacks than coupes in a world. We would be talking about fastback to coupe conversions. If Ford made more fastbacks, we would be talking about fastback to coupe conversions. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think the coupes look good. I'm not gonna lie. You guys are gonna hate me for saying that. I don't think they look good. I mean, there are definitely some that really pull it off, but it takes a lot for me, in my personal opinion, to think that a coupe looks good. It takes a lot, yeah. I mean, fastbacks are just, man, they're just sleek. They're great. They're great looking. But I also keep in mind, I'm not a Ford guy. I just kind of fell into this. I'm a Chevy guy. I'm a massive Chevelle fan. I'm a massive Nova fan. And making Mustangs look more like those cars makes me happy. Long, sloping back. I love that stuff. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap up here, guys. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Consider joining the community. We're going to be doing more videos, more Facebook Lives. So, hit the notifications if nothing else, and, check out future videos, lives. But again, I don't do these lives a lot, so thanks for coming and hanging out, asking questions. If you have any other questions, just email me at lostsocketgarage@gmail.com. We're working on a website right now. I had a website, but I built it, so it looked like shit. So we're having someone build us a website right now that we'll have our shirts on and our keychains and piston clocks and all that crap on. So be looking for that in the future. But again, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Peace. I can't make a cut right now, so you actually have to watch me turn this off.